Welcome back to another MOTOBOB video, where today we're looking at the most expensive road legal bikes from each of the major manufacturers in price order ascending. We do this list every year and pretty much always the most affordable, most expensive bike comes from Royal Enfield, who specialise in making great looking retro style bikes at a super accessible price point. For 2025 though, they've gone a little bit more premium, with the most expensive bike in their lineup being a special edition built in collaboration with US clothing brand Icon Motorsports. It's built upon the Shotgun 650, which uses their air-cooled parallel twin, with a cruiser-ish long and low chassis, but yet a relatively neutral riding position that means you can ride it in a fairly sporty manner. Just 100 of these will be made though with this special race-inspired paint job, and there's also the option of a matching jacket. £7,399 is the price, which is about £500 or £600 more than the standard shotgun. And so as you'll see, when we get to the top end of this list, it's a bit of a snip for a bike that's part of a limited run. A big jump up in price to the next one though at £14,599, and it's Husqvarna's Norden 901 adventure bike in its expedition spec. This one is built upon the KTM 890 adventure platform, with the two companies being under the same parent group, but this time it's wrapped in Husqvarna's signature styling, which I think is all for the better. This expedition version specifically gets upgraded longer suspension, as well as a taller windscreen and standard fit soft luggage, and 2025 brings a new khaki and fluo yellow paint job, as well as a few extra features like some new mirrors, a USB-C charging port, and some upgraded tech. Definitely one of my favourite adventure bikes on the market, but at 887mm in the seat in its low setting, it's realistically only one for the tall or those with excellent balance. Also in the adventure category, we've got the beautiful Stelvio from Moto Guzzi, which I was lucky enough to review in 2024. To be honest, it's a bike that doesn't really make the most power, it's not the most aggressive off-roader, it doesn't have the most bleeding edge tech, but it's just a well-balanced package that was thoroughly enjoyable every time I took it out. The transverse V-twin is rich and pleasing on the ear, the handling intuitive, the riding position comfortable, and it has to be said it's a bike that always makes you look back when you walk away after parking it up. The most expensive variant in their lineup though is this new Duecento Tributo, which celebrates 200 years of the Stelvio Pass, from which of course this bike gets its name. On this one, you get the dedicated blue, white and red paint job, along with the top spec tech package with radars front and rear, and the knowledge that it's part of a limited run of 2,758 bikes. Now moving on to Yamaha, and previously you'd have found the top spec R1 models in the most expensive list, but seeing as we're looking at road-only bikes, and given that their premium sports bikes are pretty much now all track-only, it's actually the Tracer 9 GT Plus Tourer that's the highest price of any bike in their 2025 lineup. This one's powered by their CP3 inline triple, which is an absolute peach, on a tall but road-friendly chassis, and I've got to say, having tried it a couple of years back in Sardinia, it's a really great all-day tourer that can still entertain when the road tightens up. This top dog GT Plus model gets all the bells and whistles when it comes to tech, with a Matrix LED headlight, a big TFT dash, semi-active electronic suspension, radar-enabled cruise control, and the option of their AMT or automated manual transmission, which allows you to ride the bike without needing to operate the clutch or shifter peg. On the one hand, this is probably a tech lover's dream, but on the other, perhaps a purist nightmare. But in terms of the latest touring assistance, it's hard to argue that it's pretty much second to none. Speaking of tech, if you're looking to make the most of some of the connectivity features on these bikes, like taking calls and controlling music through the switchgear and dash, then a good comms headset is an absolute essential. We'd recommend the ones that we believe are the best in the business from Cardo, and specifically we've been using their flagship PackTalk Edge and PackTalk Pro models, which both have brilliant audio quality courtesy of their JBL design speakers. Then their excellent dynamic mesh system gives you a rock-solid intercom connection when you're out on a group ride, and specifically the Pro model gets a couple of extra features, including their new crash detection, which can alert an emergency contact if it detects a crash, which I think is a brilliant bit of peace of mind every time you're out on the bike. I absolutely love using Cardo products, and so I'd thoroughly recommend checking out the link down in the description below. And down there, you'll also find a discount code specifically for our viewers. So once again, a massive thanks to Cardo for their support and for making videos like this one possible. Like Yamaha, Suzuki's sports bike lineup has been thinned out in Europe over the past few years owing to increasingly strict emissions regulations, yet somehow they've managed to keep the most beefy of the bunch alive and kicking. The Hayabusa is a legendary name in motorcycling and immediately associated with going fast with a 1340cc inline-4 engine that makes over 180 horsepower and bags of torque. The fairly weighty and long chassis makes it much more of a sports tourer than I'd say a thoroughbred sports bike, but if you're looking to cover straight line miles exceptionally quickly and still have a little bit of fun through corners, then there are still few bikes that can really compete. £18,599 gets you the standard white version, or for another £400 you can get the 25th anniversary edition with the brilliant orange and black paint job. Now onto KTM, and I was expecting some of their new 1390 models like the super techy Super Adventure Evo or the Super Duke GT to be top of the list, but at the moment we've no price for either of those 2025 models on the website. I guess this could be because they're currently trying to clear a huge backlog of around 250,000 bikes, whilst at the same time navigating severe financial difficulties that resulted in them going into self-administration. Perhaps those models will come in a few months' time, but for the time being, the most expensive bike you can currently buy from them is the incredible 1390 Super Duke R Evo. This is one of the wildest naked bikes that money can buy, with a monstrous 1350cc V-twin that makes some serious power at 187 horses peak. The chassis is also quick and responsive, and this Evo version gets their top draw semi-active WP suspension package, which gives it a level of versatility. For example, you can offset the automatic preload to play with the geometry of the bike so that it's either a little more sat down for stability and getting your feet down, or you can get it up on its nose for a more aggressive, twitchy ride. Over at Aprilia though, we've got their RS V4 Factory, which is probably the best sounding bike on this list. It's an absolute stunner in the looks department as well, and it also has the performance to match. The 1100 V4 makes well over 200 horsepower, and it's dripping with the best of the best in terms of hardware and tech, especially in this top dog factory spec. For 2025, it's been tweaked to meet the latest emissions regulations, as well as getting upgrades to the brakes with Brembo's latest high pure calipers. But then also you've got some new aero winglets for a bit of extra downforce, and the rider aids and safety features now use a predictive feature to try to intervene before you actually need them. No 2025 price for this one yet, but last year was just over 23 grand for the factory version, and while it's undoubtedly still a heck of a lot of money versus some of the other sports bikes later on this list, it looks comparatively like a bit of a bargain. Next up, we've got Triumph with their mighty Rocket 3 that we reviewed a couple of weeks back, which is a beast of a cruiser with a huge 2.5-litre inline triple engine that makes more torque than any other bike on the market at 225 Nm peak. The way that it looks is beastly too, with that huge fuel tank and the long chassis with the single-sided swing arm, and so this one is always going to attract attention when you park it up. Granted, at over 300 kilograms it is a lot of bike, but Triumph have spec'd it to handle surprisingly well with a sporty suspension setup and firm Brembo brakes. Specifically, if you're wanting to absolutely empty your wallet, then for 2025 there's this limited edition which celebrates the career of Evel Knievel, who apparently used Triumph motorcycles for some of his stunts. This one gets a dedicated paint job that takes its inspiration from his famous jumpsuit, and so certainly one to look out for the Knievel collector, or if you want a rocket that pops. Kawasaki's ridiculous supercharged H2R is the most expensive bike listed on their website, with the 2024 version coming in at 50 grand, but that one is track only, and rightly so, at about 300 horsepower peak. For something you can actually ride on the public roads, well, you'll have to downgrade to the lowly ZX-10RR, which, well, it's not that lowly. It still makes over 200 horsepower peak from its litre inline 4. This RR version gets the best of the best in terms of goodies with the Showa balance-free suspension, a Brembo braking setup and Marchesini lightweight forged wheels. And so if you want something that's a proven winner on the track, but you can actually ride on the road, then this one is certainly worth sticking on your shortlist. Honda's most premium motorcycle comes in the form of their legendary Goldwing Tourer, specifically if you go for the Tour spec with the full luggage and their DCT box. It's a brilliant bike that just eats the miles up in comfort, with a spacious riding position, bags of wind protection with the electronically adjustable windscreen, and a super silky smooth flat 6 engine that just purrs away in the background. No price specifically on this one yet for 2025, but with it being the 50th anniversary of this model, celebrated with some lively new paint jobs, then it's certainly not going to be less than the £32,849 of the model last year. Now another pound on top of that though opens up the possibility of BMW's stunning homologation special sports bike, which goes by the name of the M1000RR. Looks-wise, the humongous winglets up front will probably be a bit divisive, but there's absolutely no doubt that this bike leaves no stone unturned in the quest for peak performance. The shift cam, variable valve timing and lift version of their inline 4-litre engine makes 218 horses now after a bunch of updates to the internals for 2025, and a new fast-action throttle should add even more snap. The chassis, braking, suspension and tech are all about as good as you'll get, and I think that plants this one firmly in the top few dream bikes in the current sports bike market. Next up though, we've got a complete change of pace with Indian's Roadmaster Elite, with their Elite line of bikes giving you the best of the best in terms of spec, features and finish, as you'll see reflected in the price, which is close to touching 40 grand. It's propelled along by their 116 cubic inch Thunderstroke air-cooled V-twin, and the rest of the bike matches the old school vibe with a traditional aesthetic that takes inspiration from other Indian Tourers over the years. Then there's adaptive lighting, heated and cooled seats and a top spec audio system, and it's all finished off in this blue and gold paint job and lashings of chrome for what I think makes for a very special looking bike. Now the equivalent over at Harley-Davidson is their CVO line or custom vehicle operations, and while you will also find some decked out Tourers there, the top of the bunch in terms of price is actually something a little more sporty. This one is the Road Glide ST, which takes its inspiration from the King of the Baggers race series, which has grown quickly in popularity over the last few years. That means you get lightweight cast wheels, a carbon front mudguard, a solo seat as standard and titanium Screaming Eagle silencers, and the high output variant of their Milwaukee 8 V-twin engine is an absolute whopper at 121 cubic inches. So this one is definitely one to consider if you want a fairly typical Harley Tourer, but spec'd up to really get a move on. Still, the last couple of bikes on this list really do notch up the price, with the next one coming from Ducati at £48,000. Their flagship sports bike, the Panigale V4, was updated for 2025 with a substantial redesign that includes new styling, a new chassis, and even more performance-orientated tech. While the standard version already starts at almost £25,000, you can pay, if you so wish, pretty much double that in price if you go for this one, which is the limited edition Tricolore version. Just 1,000 will be built as a nod to the Tricolore Ducatis of the past, and on top of the paint, the spec is also turned up to the max with some unique Brembo T-drive discs, super light carbon wheels, a dry clutch, adjustable billet foot pegs, and carbon fiber bits all over the bodywork. It is pretty much peak motorcycle porn in my opinion, but then again, nothing quite touches the Agusta Superveloce 1000 in those stakes. You see, the Superveloce started out on their 800 triple platform with a semi-retro inspired sports bike design that got a great reaction, perhaps as a bit of an alternative to the more commonly seen angular busy designs that you'll find elsewhere on the sports bike market. This one though, the 1000 version, well, it basically smashes that aesthetic together with the rudiments of their Brutale 1000 inline 4 Super Naked for a stunning outcome that I think truly lives up to their company motto of motorcycle art. At £61,400 though, don't expect to see many of these out on the road, but that still won't stop me from admiring it in the pics and dreaming of owning one someday. As always, I'd love to know your pick of the bunch, so do let me know down in the comments below, and I'll also put our selection of the best other new sports bikes on the market for 2025 on the screen now, so you can give that one a watch if you haven't already. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB, and massive thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next video.